Welcome to day 16 of our 40 days of prep. Jesus tells us that He is the way, He is the truth, and He is the life. I told you yesterday that I recently flew into Vegas so that we could do some hiking. And while we were there on our first day of this, my middle had chosen to take a hiking trail that was listed as a difficult hiking trail, which is great. I'm not a big fan of let's just go for a walk in a different place. Like I want a challenge, she wanted a challenge, and so we jumped out and we did this. And as we got going with it, we decided to make it a little bit more challenging, but the path was right there. We could see the path, not a big deal. Until we got to a point in it where we looked up and we looked at the map and we looked up again and we thought, you know what? This trail is really just going to do like a J around the end of the big pile of rocks here in the middle. We're in the canyon. The rocks are to our right at this point, and we're really just supposed to walk around them and so that we can get to the point where it overlooks everything. But what if we chose, instead of walking along the path or to where we could at least see the path, what if we just went over? Like just met it on the other side by going over this thing. And so being the people that we are, that's exactly what we did. We went over about 1,000 feet, climbing up the side of rocks and scaling boulders and all this kind of stuff. It was awesome. We got to the top of it and we looked down. It was super windy, but we looked down, we could see the trail, the path on the other side. The path was always kind of in our view on the side that we were on. So we ate our snack and then we went down and we rejoined the trail, and we went out to the end of it where everyone talks about, and you get this amazing view of Las Vegas when you get to the end of this trail. But we noticed something else. As we looked out there, we saw the parking lot. You could see it, like if you looked through the canyon and over the rocks, because we were at the highest point at this point, you could look over and you could see the parking lot over there. And so we ran a couple options through our head. We could walk back on the trail this time, and we could make it back in probably 2.5 hours or so of walking along the trail, or we could just cut straight through. And, from where we're standing, we're looking, we're like, it kind of looks like we could, cut through that spot and then cut through that spot and that spot. And yeah, I think we could do this. Let's do this. And so we started out and we get maybe, 20 minutes in, and we get to this crevice that we look at and we're like, there's really only one way down here, and that's through this crevice. And so we decided to lower ourselves down and pack after, handing packs down to each other. And it was a little sketchy, but it was fun. Well, after about an hour and a half of this, admittedly of starts and stops and I think we can hit that spot, and then getting to a spot and realizing, nope, we don't have the gear, we can't do this, and scaling halfway up a rock and then realizing it's too smooth to go the rest of the way for the gear that we have, and having to come back down and shimmy our way here and slide our way here and scoot our way here and just over and over, starting over, and okay, that's a spot we can get there, and then not being able to get through and having to go a little bit further. Well, the truth is, it was starting to get closer to dark. And there was beginning to come a moment where concern, I wouldn't say worry, but concern was starting to creep in. And being the dad, I was making sure not to overplay that concern and give her reason to worry or anything like that. But there was enough concern as it was getting darker. The fun was starting to fade and the concern was starting to grow. And then something incredible happened. I think anyway. I began to pray silently at that point of, God, I need you to show us a way out of this. We can't go back. We are too far into this. We wouldn't have time, and we wouldn't even be able to find our way back so that we could take the trail. God, I need you to give us a breakthrough here, and I need you to get us through this. And here's the spot. I kid you not making this up. We finally come over a rock and we hear some voices, and we look down and we see a trail. It's not our trail. It's not where we were aiming for, but we see a trail, and I'm able at that moment to pull out my phone and to pull up All Trails and to see what this is called, if it's called anything, or if we're still just out in the middle of nowhere. And the name of this trail is Guardian Angel. Kid you not. And so I'll speed the story up. But we went down and we joined the Guardian Angel Trail, and it did make us go back a little bit further than we would have wanted to rejoin us with the real trail. But at that point, it was a trail that was marked. It was a trail that was laid out for people to walk. It was a trail that combined us back with our original trail, and it got us back to the parking lot. What an incredible example of what happens when we try and go our own way versus the way that God has already laid out for us. Versus the way that Jesus says, no, I am the way. How many times do we sit there and go, yeah, but I think I have a different path that I can take, or I have a different plan that I can take, and it's going to work better. And we find ourselves halfway in and we realize this isn't working. And so we keep trying and we keep trying and we keep trying until we finally get to that point of saying, God, this doesn't work. And I need you. I need your path. And that's when he says, here it is. It's going to take a little bit of effort, but I'm going to get you back to the path. I'm going to lead you back to this. Church, as we've been preparing during these 40 days of prep, hopefully there's all sorts of things that are pointing you towards the path that Jesus has laid out, towards the way, the truth, and the life. But today, I'd invite you to just spend some time and just kind of think through your life and say, where have I veered off of his path and finally gotten to a point where I called out to him and he led me back to the path? Are you in a moment like right now where you need to do that? And if you are, call out to him, because he has promised that he will not leave us nor forsake us, and he will take you back to the way for truth and life. I'll see you tomorrow.